Do you think that the hostage prisoner swap that was agreed upon by Hamas and Israeli negotiators was a good deal for Israel? Because I'll tell you one thing, when you watch this closely, it seems to me like Israel has been subjecting itself to what amounts to Chinese water torture. They agreed to a plan where Hamas gets to essentially retake control of the Gaza Strip, get a tremendous amount of aid brought in, more than they were getting before, get hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of prisoners, terrorists, released back into Gaza who were, many of them convicted of heinous crimes against Israel. And in exchange for all that, Israel gets 3 emaciated hostages released each week, then paraded through a gauntlet of screaming barbarians, forced to put on fake smiles and pretend that they are grateful to their captors. I don't understand what the point of all that is. But I will tell you that if you talk to people in Israel, if you talk to the Israelis about all of this, it is torture. If you were a Muslim extremist and a brutal sadist, and you were tasked with designing a circumstance to torture the entire people of Israel and make it as painful for them as you possibly could, but you weren't allowed to actually kill any Israelis, I don't think you could come up with a more sadistic plan than what the Israelis have agreed to with this ceasefire deal. They have sat there and received every week just drips and drabs of a couple people alive. Of course, very happy to see those people come out alive, but they obviously have been mistreated. The stories that have been coming out about the way they've been mistreated while they were in captivity is just stuff that I can't repeat. And yet, you look at the Palestinians that are being released into Gaza, and they're released to a gigantic party, a huge celebration in which they're feted as heroes, raised up on shoulders, and paraded throughout town as they wave weapons and commit themselves to more violence against any Jews that they come across. To call it heartbreaking is an understatement. To call it cruel to the Israeli people is an understatement. And yet the Israelis are willing to put themselves through this just to get back any of their hostages. So far, they have received 16 of the 33 that they were supposed to get back under the first phase of the deal. And now Hamas is saying that the deal is off. They are not going to go through with returning any more hostages because they say Israel has been breaking the ceasefire agreement. Now, I'm not sure exactly in what way Israel could be said to have broken the deal, because they've been allowing 600 trucks a day into Gaza. There have been 30 to 50 fuel trucks a day entering Gaza. Much of that aid is being allowed to go up to the north. The Israelis have pulled troops out of Gaza to the point where the number of IDF still in the Gaza Strip is at the lowest level since the beginning of the war. They have pulled out of the Netzarim corridor. They've allowed Gazans to freely move back into the north without any kind of checks or inspections, which means that Hamas is moving troops and weapons and ammo and missiles and rockets and whatever they have left back into the north to prepare for further combat against Israel. Israel is essentially allowing Hamas, and you know they're watching. This is a crazy thing. You listen to footage from Gaza that comes out on the AP every day, and in almost every clip, you hear the buzzing of drones overhead. So you know that Israel is watching all of this take place in real time. In one sense, that's a good thing because Israel is no doubt keeping track of the movements of these people and watching very closely and trying to pick up clues if they are bringing in weapons or if they are fighters or if they're moving any kind of military hardware. Is it worth it to torture yourself and to allow yourself to be taken advantage of and to allow Hamas to declare victory and to rebuild their forces and to move back into the areas you've already cleared and reset a bunch of improvised explosive devices and things that are going to cause more IDF casualties when the IDF inevitably has to go back in there? Is it worth all of that to get out the few living hostages that are left? Well, the Israelis have decided that it is. And that they will go to any lengths to try to get some of their people out. I want to remind you to please hit the like button. It does make a difference in the analytics and everything. The algorithm will show this video to more people if a lot of people are hitting the like button. And if you have a second, you're going to want to go over to chuckholton.com because we're going to be releasing another documentary here soon. I'm working on that today. And so there's a lot of great stuff coming. Okay, so we're just going to have to see what happens because the IDF is now saying they are preparing forces to move back into Gaza. They're planning to put more troops into Gaza than they've ever had in Gaza if they have to go back to fighting. As I have been saying, I think that it most likely is going to come to that. We are going to see a breakdown in the ceasefire. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu has sent negotiators back to Qatar to sit down and start talking about going to phase two. Phase two would see the complete removal of troops from Gaza, and they would maintain about a half-mile buffer around the edges of Gaza. That buffer, by the way, has already been breached. There were some videos coming out of Palestinians coming within 300 meters of the border fence near one of the kibbutzim that was attacked on October 7th. That obviously is going to be a non-starter for Israel. Israel's not going to go for that. You recall that in this first 33, the first phase, the mother and the two Bibas children were supposed to be released, reunited with the father, Yarden Bibas, who was already released. But Hamas said back in 2023 that the Bibas family had been killed by an Israeli airstrike. Now, you can't trust anything they say, of course. But obviously, it's a real issue. I mean, the Bibas family, if they do not come back alive, and I don't think they will, unfortunately. I think that the children and the mother were killed one way or another. I don't know who did it, but I don't think those children are coming back alive. They're supposed to. They're on the list for this first 33. And I think Hamas knows that when they turn over the corpses of two Bibas children, then it's all over. Israel will not stand for any more, and they'll be done. They'll be done playing. And Hamas sees that day coming where they're going to have to turn over the rest of these hostages that were agreed upon in the first part of the deal. And when people find out the Bibas family is not alive, then it's done. And if Israel does not make Hamas pay so dearly that they will not have the ability to threaten Israel anymore, but they won't even have the desire. I mean, that's how bad you have to beat them. Go back to World War II. We faced an intractable enemy in Japan that was willing to sacrifice all of its soldiers. The Japanese military hierarchy called their foot soldiers isengoren, which is Japanese for 1 cent. That's because it cost 1 cent to send a postcard to their family to let them know that their soldier had been killed in battle. And to Japan, that's all their soldiers were worth. Just 1 cent. That's what they called them, isengoren. Hamas is even worse. They don't just see their fighters as expendable, they see their people as expendable. And they even celebrate when their own people get murdered because they understand that's what helps them win the information war. If they win the information war, then they win the war, period. Doesn't matter what kind of losses they take. It doesn't matter if they turn Gaza into a giant parking lot. It's even better if they do, because they turn Gaza into a giant parking lot. That's more ammunition to win the information war. You see what a dilemma that presents for Israel? It's a terrible, terrible place for Israel to be. But what Israel needs is strong leaders that can see clear-eyed about what their options truly are. Because the options are win or lose. That's it. There's no draw when it comes to Hamas. There's no tie. You can't tie with Hamas because they won't ever stop.